The sun was setting behind the Carpathian Mountains as we arrived at the edge of Hoia Baciu Forest, the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. My friends, Alex, Mia, and Jake and I had heard the legends about this haunted place but were determined to spend a night camping there. Armed with our tents, supplies, and a morbid curiosity, we stepped into the forest, its twisted trees and eerie silence immediately sending chills down our spines. "Mia, are we sure about this?" Mia asked, her voice wavering slightly. "Jake, come on, it's just a forest. We'll be fine," Jake said, trying to sound brave. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the path became less distinct, overgrown with dense foliage. The air felt thick and heavy, as if the forest itself was watching us, waiting. We walked for what felt like hours, the sunlight gradually fading into twilight. Finally, we found a small clearing surrounded by ancient gnarled trees. It seemed like the perfect spot to set up camp despite the unsettling atmosphere. We pitched our tents and gathered wood for a fire. As darkness enveloped us, the forest seemed to come alive, every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs amplified in the oppressive silence. The fire we built flickered weakly, casting long, flickering shadows that seemed to dance menacingly at the edge of the clearing. We sat around the fire, sharing stories and laughing nervously, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. Alex told a tale about a cursed village, Jake shared an urban legend about a haunted highway, and Mia recounted a chilling ghost story from her hometown. The fire crackled, and our laughter seemed to echo strangely in the stillness of the night. Around midnight, the temperature dropped suddenly. A thick fog rolled in, and the air grew heavy. The fire flickered and dimmed, as if struggling to stay alive. "Alex, did you hear that?" Alex whispered. We all fell silent, straining to listen. A faint, ghostly whisper seemed to float through the air, incomprehensible but undeniably there. Then the whispers turned into a chorus of distant, mournful cries. The sound was coming from deeper within the forest. "Maybe it's just the wind," I suggested, though my heart was pounding. The forest seemed to close in around us. Shadows danced at the edge of the firelight, and every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. Mia's face was pale, and she kept glancing over her shoulder. "Mia, we should have stayed home," she muttered. Suddenly, a loud snap echoed through the clearing, as if a branch had been broken underfoot. We all jumped, our eyes darting towards the source of the noise, but there was nothing there, just the dense fog and the twisted trees. "Jake, I'm going to check it out. It's probably just an animal." "Mia, Jake, don't," Mia pleaded, grabbing his arm. "Jake, I'll be fine," he insisted, shaking her off. He grabbed a flashlight and walked towards the trees. We watched his light bob and weave through the darkness until it disappeared entirely. The forest seemed to swallow him whole. Minutes passed, and the silence became unbearable. "Alex, Jake, come back!" Alex called, but there was no response. Just as we were about to go after him, Jake's flashlight reappeared, moving erratically. He stumbled back into the clearing, his face pale and eyes wide with fear. "Jake, something's out there, something not human." Mia screamed, pointing towards the trees. We all turned to see shadowy figures emerging from the fog. They moved slowly, their forms indistinct but undeniably human-like. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, watching us. "Jake, let's get out of here!" Jake shouted. But as we turned to flee, we realized we were surrounded. The figures closed in, their whispers growing louder, almost as if they were chanting. "Stay together!" I yelled, but panic had set in. We ran blindly through the forest, the shadows pursuing us. The trees seemed to close in, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The whispers turned into screams, echoing in our ears. I lost sight of my friends, my surroundings becoming a blur of darkness and terror. Suddenly, I stumbled into another clearing. In the center stood an ancient, leafless tree, its twisted branches silhouetted against the moonlit sky. Hanging from its branches were tattered pieces of cloth and old, rusted objects. Offerings from past visitors, perhaps. As I approached the tree, a wave of nausea washed over me. The ground beneath it was littered with bones, human and animal alike. The air grew colder, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly to see a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It was a woman, her face pale and eyes hollow. She raised a hand, pointing at me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of despair. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Suddenly, Alex, Mia, and Jake burst into the clearing. They looked as terrified as I felt. The woman vanished, but the oppressive feeling remained. "We have to leave now," Mia cried, and we didn't need any more convincing. We stumbled through the forest, the shadows still following us. Just as we thought we would be trapped forever, we broke through the tree line and found ourselves back at the edge of the forest. The sun was rising, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The horrors of the night seemed to fade, but the memories lingered. Breathing heavily, we collapsed on the grass, relieved to be out of the forest. But something was wrong. As the first rays of sunlight touched our faces, we realized that the forest edge looked different from where we had entered. The trees here were more gnarled and twisted, and the atmosphere still felt heavy and oppressive. "Oh, where are we?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," I admitted, looking around, "but we need to keep moving." We followed what we thought was the way back to our car, but the path seemed unfamiliar. The forest, though brighter in the morning light, still held an ominous presence. Every now and then we would hear the faint whispers, reminding us that we were not alone. As we walked, we found strange markings on the trees. Symbols carved into the bark, old and weathered, but still visible. They looked like ancient runes, and none of us could decipher their meaning. "Mia, I think we're going in circles," Mia said, panic creeping into her voice. "Jake, no, we just need to keep going this way," Jake insisted, though he didn't sound convinced. Hours passed and the sun climbed higher in the sky. We were exhausted, thirsty, and disoriented. The forest seemed to stretch on endlessly, a maze with no exit. Just when we thought we couldn't go on any longer, we stumbled upon a small, abandoned village. The buildings were old and decrepit, with roofs caved in and walls covered in moss. It looked like it had been deserted for decades. "Alex, maybe we can find something here," Alex suggested, though his voice was weak. We explored the village cautiously, the eerie silence pressing down on us. Inside one of the houses we found a journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. It belonged to a man named Andre, who had lived there many years ago. His entries spoke of strange occurrences in the forest, people disappearing, ghostly apparitions, and the feeling of being watched. The last entry was particularly chilling. "They are coming. The forest has awakened. I can hear their whispers in the night. If you find this, know that you are not safe. Leave this place while you still can." The village offered no solace. As night began to fall again, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. We decided to make one last attempt to find our way out, moving as quickly as we could. But the forest seemed to have other plans. The shadows grew longer, and the fog returned, thicker than before. The figures from the previous night reappeared, their forms more distinct and menacing. They surrounded us, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Jake, we can't stay here. We have to run." We bolted, but no matter how fast we ran, the figures kept pace, their whispers turning into screams. The forest twisted and turned, disorienting us further. I felt a hand grab my arm, and I turned to see Mia, her face pale and eyes wide with terror. "Mia, they won't let us leave," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of screams. In a final, desperate attempt, we made our way back to the ancient tree. The offerings hanging from its branches swayed in an unseen breeze, and the ground around it seemed to pulse with a dark energy. As we stood there, the realization dawned on us. The forest demanded a sacrifice. The spirits, the whispers, the apparitions, they were all part of the forest's curse. We huddled together, knowing we had to stay strong and find a way to break the curse without losing one of us. Suddenly, the ground beneath us started to tremble. The ancient tree began to creak, and its branches twisted and turned as if it were coming to life. The air grew colder, and the whispers turned into a deafening roar. "Hold on!" I shouted, grabbing Alex's hand. The earth opened up around the tree, revealing a deep, dark pit. From within it, the spirits of the forest emerged, their forms more terrifying and distinct. They surrounded us, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Just when we thought all was lost, Mia pulled out the journal we had found earlier. She began to read from it, her voice strong and steady. The words seemed to have a power of their own, and the spirits recoiled, their whispers turning into screams of agony. As Mia continued to read, the pit began to close, and the spirits started to fade. The ancient tree shook violently, and with one final, deafening crack, it split in two. The forest fell silent, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. We stood there, panting and exhausted, as the first light of dawn broke through the trees. The forest, though still eerie, no longer felt as menacing. We knew we had broken the curse, at least for now. Months later, we returned to Hoia Baciu Forest with a team of paranormal investigators, hoping to uncover more about the curse and the ancient tree. But the forest had changed. The tree was gone, replaced by a new, younger one, and the symbols on the trees had faded. We never spoke of what happened that night, but the memories lingered. We had survived the horrors of Hoia Baciu Forest, but the experience had left its mark. We knew one thing for sure: some places are better left undisturbed, and the legends of the forest were true. As for me, I still hear the whispers in my dreams, a reminder of the night we spent in the heart of darkness. The legend of Hoia Baciu Forest grew, and those who heard our story knew one thing: the forest was haunted, and whatever lurked within its depths was not meant to be disturbed. And so our tale became part of the legend, a warning to those who dared to enter the haunted embrace of Hoia Baciu Forest. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-chilling travel stories. Share your thoughts and let us know if you've ever had a paranormal experience. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest adventures into the unknown. Stay curious, stay safe.